everyone, and this is Damsels After Dark. I'm Kristen,
And I'm Crystal.
and welcome to our show where we talk about random things about our books that we like and dislike.
Yep.
This episode, we will be talking about Gild by Raven Kennedy. It's the first book in a six-series fantasy, romantic fantasy book.
Like all of our episodes, the first half will be spoiler free, and then we'll jump into our favorites and hated parts at the end. So we'll give a little warning before then as well. And if you want to follow along and read with us, you can follow our reading and review schedule, which will be linked down below.
So without further ado,
let's jump into it. Full disclosure, Kristen and I have already read these ones. The Gild, I've read 4, Kristen's read 5. We are rereading them, though, because the last one of this series is coming out in September. And so we'll be posting it a little bit later, but from like its release date. But we're trying to match it up as close as possible so that we can be there to comment on it when the series finally comes to a closure. Kristen decided she was going to throw herself into some torture because the last book I read, the 4th one, leaves you on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
That wasn't good enough for Kristen, though. She wanted more torture.
Yeah, I did. I thought, okay, how bad could the next one possibly be? No, it gets worse. Because I could not be left on that cliffhanger. And now I'm just left on a crazier cliffhanger. So that's my own fault. That's my own doing. I should have known better. But they are, in my opinion, they're really good overall as a series.
Yeah.
The first book is a little bit difficult to get through, in my opinion. However, it is a shorter book of all of them. It's like, I think it's 300 page. If you're doing it book-wise, it's 300 pages. I think if you're a Kindle, I guess it depends on your font, but it was like 400 pages on my Kindle.
That's how mine was. Yeah, I think overall, I would say it's a favorite series of mine. Like, I do enjoy the series.
Yeah.
It'll be fun and interesting to sort of relive them and rate them book by book. But for the most part, I think that the Gild is probably my lowest rated out of all of them. But now rereading it, I've come to appreciate certain aspects of it that I may have missed the first time. And now knowing like where our main character gets from like where she started, it's fun to relive this journey with her.
Yes, it's definitely one of my favorite series so far. I wouldn't say it's one of my top, like very top 3, but it is up there. I do enjoy it, and rereading it a second time, I'm happy to reread it because it makes me appreciate the first book. Because like the first time I've read this first book in particular, I had a very difficult time. Not that it's a bad read. There's a lot in the book that give you certain feels, and I had a hard time reading it. So just know that FYI, being that we're about to get into it. Anyways, there's a lot of triggers in this book. There's sexual assault. There's abuse. There's I would say abuse of a minor, if anything, in there. There's it's difficult. Like I'm struggling to even talk about it.
Yeah.
It makes me mad. Just knowing that these are, I don't want to say hints because they're not hints. They're in your face abuse and triggers.
Yeah.
And the more you read, the more you realize how much this book is an abusive trigger. So.
Yep. So I guess we can jump off of that into the summary of it. And essentially, this first book is about our main character, Auren, is how I say her name. Or Auren.
Yeah.
That just sounds like we're trying to say Auren.
Yeah.
But with just a fancy accent.
Yeah.
So I call her Auren. But so it's her, and she is a gilded saddle. And the saddles in here are like the king's plaything, like they're harems.
The harems, concubines, whatever you want to like term for that particular. I don't want to say they're sex slaves in Midas's court because they want to be there.
Yes.
These particular they call them royal saddles, want to be there. They feel like it's a prestigious job.
Yes.
Even though they don't get paid for it, but they get prestigious like
status.
Yeah.
Almost, in at least the saddle world.
Yeah, and they're true. And to be honest, to be fair, he's not disrespecting these saddles.
He's not,
like he takes care of them, and I don't like saying this because when you find out about him. But they're not just, they like it.
Yes.
They enjoy, they really want to, in fact, they get jealous of each other.
Yes.
Throughout this.
And I think we can rewind a little bit too, and also just note that this is a retelling of the story of King Midas.
Yeah.
Who, of course, if you don't know, he had a power where he can touch everything that he touched turned to gold. Is essentially his power. So this is the retelling of this, but this is through the POV through one of his saddles that he touched and turned gold. So it's his fave. It's his fave.
She's the king's favorite.
Favorite, yes,
Yeah.
the king's favorite. His gold touch saddle. And he does have other saddles, obviously, like we mentioned. He also has a wife.
Yeah, the queen.
Yeah, the queen. And so the story is from his fave saddle's point of view, and sort of, I don't know, she lives with him. She's been with him for a while, and
she was, you'll know right off the beginning that she was with him from the beginning, before he was even a king. You find that out. And so she is his favorite, and it makes you feel as if he bestowed upon her the golden touch.
Because he liked her so much.
So you'll hear a lot that she has the golden touch, but that has two meanings. So she will say, he favors me because I am his golden touch favorite saddle, and I was with him throughout the whole thing, and she's in love with him. All the saddles pretty much are in love with him, but she more so, because there's a connection that she believes they have together. And so he keeps her away where no one can touch her. The only one who could touch her is him, and she's in a gilded cage.
Yeah, in a literal cage.
Gilded, yeah.
He has the whole top floor of his castle dedicated to her, so she's got full run of the top part of the castle, but it's all caved in or caged in. And when she is being summoned to other parts of the castle, it's under heavy guard. She has a specific guard with her the entire time. That's her main guard.
And he even built the castle to have caged areas, so she could still walk through the area of her cage throughout the castle, and and then he's like building off of it to where she could have accessible areas through her cage. It's really strange. I try to picture it, and I have a hard time trying to picture the castle sectioned off with
a cage. Yeah. Well, she can't access all of the cage, so she just has like her own
section, like an area where she can go in and out.
And then also nobody's allowed to touch her, so she hasn't had human contact other than Midas for years since he brought her to the castle, and since he became king. And so essentially, Midas sets up some sort of situation where he is trying to start a war, invade other territory. He's sort of trying to grab a higher power, as kings do.
Yeah, he's trying to play that political game and utilize his gold, his riches, in order to get higher up in status. But there's a peace treaty amongst the 6 kingdoms. There's 6 kingdoms right now, and in those 6 kingdoms they supposedly have peace, but they're kind of at odds with each other, particularly King Midas, who is in the 6th, and everything he does is in 6. Yeah. 6, everything is gold. So, and then he's trying to ally. Well, he is allied with the 5th kingdom, and that's pretty much where we come into play. And the 5th king is this disgusting human being, and only people with powers can run a kingdom. And the powers stem from another race of beings. Yeah. And they are no longer supposedly there. So that's pretty much where the story is.
And Auren sort of gets caught in the middle of his sort of political scheming. And that's where we start our adventure. So that's pretty much all of the summary that we could give without really tiptoeing that fucking line.
Yeah, we really did tiptoe that line.
So overall, Kristen,
I gave it a 3 out of 5. The reason why I say that is because it's a pretty slow book. I found myself being bored a few moments here and there. Not that the story is a shit story, not that it's boring. Not that the story itself is boring, but I feel like the POV of Auren, she's captive. She's bored. So like you're seeing it through the eyes of a victim. She's in love with this guy who's constantly abusing her. So even though you're reading it through her perspective, she's in love with him, and I'm not. So that's infuriating.
And she's trying to make you
feel like
sort of love him. Or,
yeah, like he's a good guy somewhere
Yes.
deep down, even though he's doing these shitty things. There's goodness to him.
Because before he was wonderful.
Yeah, and so as the time goes on, as you read more and more into this book, it's just I'm trying to read. I'm saying this without spoilers. As you read more and more into this book, I don't feel like I got that picture, Auren. Like he's not a good guy, but she tries to make you believe that no, just keep looking. Like in the sense, she's trying to convince herself.
Yes.
Like all the shitty things he's doing, there's a reason. And she even says throughout the book that I don't want to say that because that's giving a spoiler. But she just pretty much tries to convince herself. She just says, I could see things in his eyes that make me remember who he was and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's trying to make me, and that's obviously he's manipulating her through this book, and so I have a hard time reading that, and so because of that, it makes me very angry. But that is the point of the book.
Yes.
So understand that when you're getting through it. But that was not the reason why I rated it 3. That's just I was feeling a certain way, and it made it hard for me to read.
Yeah.
It's not that it gives it its story. I just had a hard time reading it, and it took all the way up until like a third of the way in for it to me to get really interested into this book.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to read. I don't like reading a book about abuse. So when you're reading this, to be fair too, it's not like he is physically abusing her.
Yeah.
This is more of an emotional abuse in the beginning. And so as it triggers into the second half of the book, things start to take place where now it starts becoming interesting because she is not, other players become involved into this book. And so she's now faced with different things, it's so hard to say without spoilers. She's now faced with different scenarios that's not necessarily within castle walls, and so that becomes intriguing to me.
Yeah.
And to see how she's going to be faced with all these issues and obstacles, and there's a lot of feels towards that last half of that book, a third of the book. So I also do enjoy that there is magic in this book because I'm a fantasy reader. So sorry. Well, before it gets like, I think halfway through the book, you're starting to wonder, is there even going to be magic in this book? Because you don't really, you just hear about it.
Yeah.
But magic just starts to come and play the last part of it, and I like the idea. Even though they're just talking about the magic, they're talking about how it's part of the kingdom and who can possess it and stuff like that, or who does possess it. And that is interesting to me. That's just like the beginning parts of it. So I love the magic system so far.
Yes.
But you don't see it, so that's why I also rated it a 3, because like it's not a big part of the book yet. It's just talking about it. But when the magic does come into play, it's pretty good.
It's good.
It's pretty good. So, but yeah, so that's why I rated it 3 out of 5. Spice, I gave it a 1 because right off the bat there's sexual content.
Yeah, right when you open the book.
There is sexual content in this book, but it's not the romantic type.
No.
But I gave it a 1 because if you are expecting to get no sexual content in this book, and I put a 0, that's not true for me. I don't believe that's entirely true. But it's not good content of like romance.
It's certainly icy too, because
I don't like it.
It's in the form of like a tool of manipulation.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, it's a tool of sexual abuse, and so there really is not. That's it.
Yeah.
You get it as manipulation and then a straight up just abuse.
Yeah, sexual assault. Like so, that's in there. But it, like I said, I don't want to just say 0 because, in my opinion, I don't want to tell somebody like, oh, read this book. It has no spice in it. And it's like, you're gonna be thrown off right at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my ratings.
Yeah, I agree. I went a little bit higher, and I'm doing the same thing I did with Masters of Death. I'm stuck right between a 4 and a 3, so I'm going to give it a solid 3.5. I think Kristen perfectly described it, that this is the POV of a victim, and so you're living through her constant reiteration of the things that he's told her, that she keeps repeating in her head when she's doubting certain things. For instance, like, she lives in a gilded cage, and everything around her is gold, and so she's often thinking about freedom, but then reminding herself, well, I'm lucky. I am in a gilded cage. Like, there's gold around me. People outside would be starving. And you just know that's the shit somebody's been telling her over and over that she just keeps holding on to. Mm-hmm. And again, like Kristen was saying, when it goes to, like, the love aspect and, like, oh, the twinkle in his eye, or, like, the remembering of him touching, or the things that... It's just like you see, this is all... The fingerprints are all over this of the manipulation that he's been doing. And so... Yes, that is horrible, but when you understand that that's the point, like that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be in the POV of the victim, being victimized right now so that you understand where she came from to start as the level place for this book. So for that, I like that aspect of it. I like seeing this, especially knowing where it goes. It's well worth it to just sort of digest this as what it is. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with somebody who's being manipulated and who has been since she was like 15. By a man who's way older than her.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah, so overall I like this. I also love the point of view of, like, this isn't like a queen or a lord or a lady who's in this castle and then we're learning about, Midas through this. No, we're learning about it from, like, a saddle. Like, somebody who he just uses sexually and that's it. And she's also lumped in with all of these other saddles and that she's this gilded one. She's the most preferred. She's the perfect saddle. And, like, everybody consistently reminds her of this, too. Like, oh, you must have a gilded C-word. You know what I mean? Like, I like this aspect of this POV angle that we have. And I like Auren so much. I think she's fucking funny. Even though she's, like, dealing with some manipulation in her head, like, she's hilarious. She does some things that are funny. Her internal monologue, I think, is funny. She has her one guard that she's, like, constantly messing with, and I think she reminds me a lot of me because I feel like I would be that way, like, just silly in my head and, like, silly here and, like, trying to look for the bright side of things. Like,
she does do the bright side a lot.
And sometimes it's kind of annoying because she's like, I need a bright side, but,
I think
like,
it's kind of funny.
I think it's funny, and I also think just, like, her overall personality is one that's, like, she doesn't let things kind of hamper her down. She's always, like, building herself up, and I really like that about her. I think she's a great main character. And I also agree with you. There is spice, though it's not spice, so it should be noted that it's in here. There's sexual content in here right at the first fucking chapter. You're there seeing it. But yeah, none for our character.
No.
So you're not really, like, being romanticized and then in it. It's just the horrors are happening around her. So overall, 3.5. Goodreads also gave it 3.59. So again, we're right smack in the middle. They have 170,000 people rated it a 3.59.
That's a lot of people, actually.
It is a lot of people. Now, I pulled some of the reviews, the 1 stars, as I often like to do.
Yeah, I know. I love that you do that.
I feel like when we like a book, I want to hear, like, what people fucking hate about the book that we generally like.
Yes, I do too.
So I pulled 3. And the first one, Shield Maiden Darcy said, I got 76% of the way through and realized it's just torture porn. There was 0 romance. The MC is a crying weakling. All men are rapey. It's not a good time at all. And I want to talk about these. I'll get through them.
Kinda.
Hot Mess Summerly? I don't know, sorry. She basically said, abysmal writing, deeply misogynistic worldview, and then the last one is from Rachel H., and she said, this book is not a romance, not even close. Instead, it is a twisted and sick story about women who are referred to as saddles to have sex with anyone the king gives them to. This is a story of a woman in an abusive relationship who stays in that abusive relationship. I think, I'll give my 2 cents real quick, but I think that these are coming from people who are not viewing the book the way that it should be viewed, and then also, this is not the end-all be-all of the... Like, this is a series.
It's not a standalone.
This is not a standalone book, so to say that this is the romance that's gross and she stays in it, it's like, but you're not...
No, yeah, you gotta read... You gotta read through the whole thing, and I know people are like, well, I don't want to read through the whole thing to get to that point. Well, then, this is not the book for you. This is not the series for you. But to rate it and be like, okay, this is what it is. It's like, okay, yeah, for this specific book maybe. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, can someone really stay if they're forced to?
Right? She's in a...
Like, she's in a cage. Captive. Like,
and she's...
It's not like she's choosing to... I mean, maybe she is. She kind of is. But, like, can she really? She doesn't have the option to go anywhere else or do anything else. So, like... And she feels like it's for her protection. Without getting into spoilers, so I'm trying not to...
And again, it's like you took... if you read the book, you're well aware that, again, they started a sexual relationship when she was way young.
Yeah.
What he saved her from was the foundation for the abuse that continued on. So, like, she's in an abusive situation. She's not staying here because she's in love. Like, she's being abused and manipulated. That's why she's here.
Yeah, and she doesn't know any better. Without spoilers, like, I can't really say anything else because if we could get into our spoilers, which I probably will discuss more in our spoilers there. So if you do want to kind of know and not care about spoilers, then yeah, we will discuss this more in our spoiler section, because I can't really discuss why this isn't exactly accurate without getting into spoilers. So I kind of understand their point of view, because you are reading. This is the first book, so you have to fully grasp her abuse and what's going on with her and her mind frame through this book. Otherwise, you can't. And to be fair, it's not the whole book that she's under his manipulation. It is only, I would say, about 2/3 of the book. And this book is a short book.
Yeah.
It's $300.
$300.
It's a 300-page book. So you're looking at maybe 200 pages
of the active manipulation happening.
Yes.
Because it does linger through the other books, but that's somebody who's been removed from a situation who's now seeing the world differently.
Yeah. So, like, without spoilers, it's really hard to.
I will say that these reviews, of course, like, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I do think that they're unfair and a little bit misguided, and like
and inaccurate for the series.
Yes, inaccurate for the series.
Yeah. And
I think too that, to say that all men are rapey, I kind of.
That's not true either in this book, because there's quite a few of them that
who are stand up,
and they were actually.
And I will also say, yes, that I think that this came off more realistic, because there's a lot of times when heroines get captured, and I'm like, I know these guys would be raping them. I know they would be. Yes. And then finally, I have somebody who's like, that's their, like, they want a taste of what the King Midas is. This is his favorite gilded thing. Like, of course they're gonna touch her.
Yeah, because every time I've read a book and they hold this girl captive, they always end up being gentlemen. It's like, that's not true.
Yes, and I think this was a realistic portrayal. And you're right, there are two of my favorite characters who are not rapey.
Yeah.
And then you have the ones that are. Like, it's a perfect portrayal of there are good ones and then there are bad ones.
Yeah, so I think that was not correct and not true to the story when it comes to all men are rapey, because that's not true in this book. That's not.
And the deeply misogynistic worldview was like, well, again, you're looking at the point of view from a victim and who is being actively manipulated in the first half of this book. So of course it's going to come off that way, because she's actively being abused.
And
while
he's surrounding himself. King Midas is a piece of shit, so he's surrounding himself by other pieces of shit. What do you expect is going to happen?
Exactly.
So she doesn't have the freedom to go elsewhere to stop herself from being in the vicinity of these men.
And I think that this is a general portrayal of how women who are in her situation that are saddles, who's viewed by other men as their whole purpose is to have sex with them. Like, that's the purpose of the saddle. So why would these men around her view them anyway? Like, nobody's talking about his wife that way, because that's not her status.
No, in fact, they shut their fucking mouth when she's around.
Because she's the fucking queen.
Yeah, so sorry we're giving spoilers on that.
But when you have a saddle, of course all of the men around her are going to look at her like she's a sex object, because that's her purpose.
That's exactly what.
And her station.
Yeah.
So.
And if you are reading this book saying, I don't want to read about a saddle or a concubine, it's like, it says it right in the book. She's a captive.
Yeah.
That is what it says at the beginning. So I don't know why you'd be like, I want to read this book but not read it for that reason. It's like, okay, well, I'm not reading it for that reason. That's not why I read it. It's an interesting story. But, like, if you didn't know that was a part of the book, you didn't read the description of the book.
Yes.
So, like, how could you be surprised is what I'm saying.
Yes.
You can't be surprised.
Agreed. So all around, those were what I found tended to be the most talked about of number ones. And so I would just say, if you're unsure about whether or not you want to start this series, I wouldn't base it off of that. I think this book is a great book for what it is, but it is the stepping stone for the rest of the books. It is to tell you where she's coming from, her mind frame, what she came from, and it even gives her some of her backstory. Not all of it, because you continue to learn that, but you learn a little bit about her backstory here and sort of why she ended up here, and then serves its purpose. Somebody did also in the one review said that this was like a whole book of a prologue, which I would say is a little harsh, but also I agree.
It's not too far from being a prologue.
It's not too far off.
I would agree to a big extent. I would say a good 2/3 of the book. The whole 2/3 of the book where she's in Midas's clutches, I would say, is definitely a prologue in my opinion.
Yeah.
That it does, like I said, doesn't get interesting. The story doesn't start to develop until that last part of that book.
Yes. And I will also say the reason I also gave it still a 3 is because it does get boring a little bit. I think I paused this book midway through, right when she ends up like leaving the castle at some point, and around that time I stopped reading because it was boring, and I don't think I picked it up for like another month.
Yeah.
And then it started to get interesting again, but it is a slow read for such a small book.
It is, and that is none of like all that stuff that everybody gave it 1 star for is not the reason why I gave it a 3. It is because it is a slow, boring.
I think it has 2 major good parts in it, and they are separated at the beginning and then the end. So you're like, whoa, whoa, and then it's good. Like from 80% onward, the book,
really
the series just fucking takes off.
Yeah, the whole series, because after the second book is really good, the third book is really good. Like it takes off. It's to be fair, it is kind of the prologue. It is. I wouldn't disagree with that.
But like, if you're interested in this, I think that you need to make it to the second book before you can decide if this just really isn't for you. Like it's a small book. Just blaze through the first one. Get to the second one and decide if this is for you.
If you're not a series reader, then probably don't pick up this book.
Probably not.
It is a big series. And
the books get bigger.
Book, the last book was like, I don't know, 600 pages.
Okay.
Maybe I think 600 pages, because I think the fourth book is 400. So yeah, if you're not a series reader, I wouldn't suggest it, because it takes a little bit from the first book to get interesting.
Yes. But so yeah, a 3.5. Yeah. But now we can jump into our favorite part. Sorry, I went for you. All right. So I'll start with my favorite parts. I love King Midas's betrayal of Falk.
Yeah.
Falk, I remember when I read it, because I was not expecting it. It was one of those great twists where I was like, I was just as shocked as Auren was. Wait, what? What happened? And then the dude dies. I loved all of this. It was so good. Did see it. And it was smart. Like, this idea that he's been feeding this man money to kind of put it away in his kingdom and keep it there for him so that he can maneuver this. Like, I don't like you, but that was a good move.
Yeah.
That was pretty smart. I like that. So it shows you that he's not a complete, like, fucking bumbling buffoon.
He's not. He's a very good manipulator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he is.
Auren said he doesn't have a silver tongue. He has a gold tongue.
Yes.
And it was, like, very cleverly written, too, because it's true.
Another thing that I liked Sale. I like her relationship with Sale. Yeah. And I remember reading this thinking, like, is this going to be the love interest?
Yeah,
because he was so sweet and so flirty, but, like...
It was perfect.
It was perfect. And it was such a good... it was such a good portrayal of, like, a man that could be in her life, that could treat her as something more. And he even says to her, like... Yeah, you're the royal saddle, but you should be treated like a lady. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. You should make sure people are treating you
that
right.
way.
Like, he's so sweet. I loved him. And so to piggyback off that, when she cuts him down, that is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
When she climbs up, she's like...
Takes him off the sail.
And she's asking the other saddles to help her, and they're just logging her. She's like, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to throw him over the... I liked it. We got to
take a moment for Sam.
I know. Another thing, though, that shocked me, like, I was super upset. Because I was thinking that he was going to be maybe another, this was the real love interest, and then we're going to have to deal with him and Midas, and then he dies, and I was like, wait, what the fuck?
I was not expecting him to be the love interest the whole series. I was expecting him to be the beginning love interest, and I figured maybe he would die saving her somehow, but not in the first book. Like, I thought they were at least going to be intimate. I thought she was going to be the connection that drops him from Midas. It wasn't.
No, but he died right away. And
I was hoping he would be her Castile from it gave me from Blood and Ash vibes a lot through this book rereading.
I can see that.
I was because I'm reading both at the same time, guys.
Yeah.
So, but like.
And I like Digby, Digby kept like, you need to stop. Like,
I love them.
He said something too, like the guards don't play show tricks to the favorite or something like that.
Sexual tricks.
Sexual tricks. Yeah. Oh, it was funny. Also, her refusal to stay in the cabin on the walk to the... I love that. But I also don't blame her.
No, like, I don't blame her.
Come on. This is her first taste of, like, being out of the castle in 10 years. Like, of course she wants to, like, ride the horses and be out walking and shit. Another one is Rissa and her throwing the captain out of the window is so fucking funny because it comes off of like the trauma that's happening and then the shock of what Auren just did and then like, okay, now we got
yeah.
And I could just imagine these two girls, scantily clad, they've been through some trauma, they're like, come on, we just gotta pick this gold man and just shove him out the window. Gold naked man.
It's like she hits I like the part where I'm gonna piggyback off that, where she hits his fucking penis with her hand. She's like, ow! Yeah, but that felt good.
Yeah. We can cut it off if you want. We can take a sledgehammer to this shit.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts. Too.
And then, let's see. The last one that I'll say is my favorite one, is when she's getting off the ramp on the boat and she falls off the fucking ramp onto the side. And that's where she first like comes face to face with Captain Rip.
I love him.
Yeah.
Yes, I hate that name, but I love him.
The fucking name. I love that. I think that's a good representation of just her because she's just really silly and stuff. That's why I like her a lot. And overall, this book is a favorite part, which I know is weird to say after I just said 3.5. But getting into her mind in this frame was really fun. Like to like relive it and pick up on those nuances. Made the whole book like a asterisk favorite part. But yeah, those are mine.
So my favorite part, Auren is stuck in a cage, and she sees that Rissa is like dancing to a degree where she's like getting tired and exhausted, and she keeps on asking her. Auren's like, I want to help, and Rissa's just like, no. She ends up like throwing a book through the cage, and then her description to Midas was like, because Midas was like, what did you fucking do that for? And she goes, oh, it just slipped.
It slipped out of the cage across the room.
Talking about it when he was like with her, and they like everybody. That was the reason why he chose to like be with her, and it's to help her through the guard stuff, and that was so funny.
Also, to talk about that a little bit, they said in there too that the books, because obviously everything is gilded, so the books were gilded, so it like cuts her lip, and like she's traumatized because Auren didn't think that the book was that heavy, but she's like, well, it's like fucking plated in gold, so whoops.
Poor Rissa, so now Rissa gets to be out the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But she was pretty fucking pissed about it. I mean, obviously she still got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also enjoyed once King Ravager, King Rod's crew with Commander Rip, that comes onto the ship of the pirate ship, and like they just end up. What do? They end up like yelling and screaming at the pirates to like, we're gonna get this, we want everybody, and like they try to manipulate that whole situation where they try to hide Auren out, and then Auren and Rissa get into that whole issue where you were talking about where they Gild the captain, and like that whole part of that was it was intriguing. Like everything up until that point, like everything from that point on is so like interesting and funny and intriguing. It's just intriguing, and it's so like I can't pinpoint a specific part once the commander gets on the ship that I like, because I like everything from the minute he gets on the ship, because the intensity even, like the minute he's getting on the ship, everybody's like, oh my god, so the minute he gets on the ship, it's like I could feel his intensity, and I already like him. I already know he's going to be a love interest because he was mine. Like I was already feeling that. So it was great, and so I couldn't like pinpoint exactly what I like, because everything about that, from the time she gilds the captain and throws him off the ship, from the time she falls over the ship, it's like it's so fucking great. When the commander's finally introduced at the very end after she falls off, I love that part too, because she goes, I know what you are, because she figures out he's Fae. He goes, that's funny, because I know that's what you are, or I know what you are. I was going to say the same thing to you, or something like that. I love that whole encounter, and it made my heart palpitate. I was like, oh, it's the guy! I was like, super excited about his introduction to them two seeing each other, because she says that she could see his stare on her, the intensity. Like, she knows that he was looking at her. So, like, when they finally got to talk, I was like, ooh, I feel that. I feel that intensity. And, I really enjoy the story of the Seventh Kingdom, because then when you find out there's a Seventh Kingdom, and she talks about it. I don't know if she's talking about it. I think she is. But you get into that information right around the time she sees Rip. She sees that he's Fae. She's like, oh my god, this is a male of like like terror. This is what everybody was talking about. That's why his name's because he rips heads off people, which is so dumb. But like it's a rumor, so like she's like talking about it, and then she discusses how the Seventh Kingdom came into play, and that story in itself is really
so
good.
Yes, with the husband, with the mortal wife and the fae, and then he searches through time and space to find the one string that brings these realms together.
So just for her love.
Yeah, so that she could go back and forth.
That's so sweet. I love that whole story, and obviously it becomes a big factor into this series. But yeah, I love it. I have a few parts that I didn't like, but you could go first on your parts that you didn't like.
The only worst part that I really have, as far as like, I don't even know if it's the worst part. Like I didn't like it, but it
bothers you.
Yeah, like it bothers me, but like I understand why it's there. But when she's talking about when she first was with Midas and the first time they kissed and then the first time they made love, she was talking about like, oh, it was 10 years ago, and if you do the math, she was fucking 15 and he was 22.
Yeah.
And I hate it because, not because of it's in the book, but just it's just gross. And then you understand where the root of this issue between these two is. Literally, that's where it stemmed from him swooping her up and saying, because she keeps saying too throughout the book, like he said that he was gonna save me and that I was safe with him and that I'd be safe with him. So he obviously grabbed her from this terrible situation, as like came in like a white fucking knight, swooped her up, wooed her, had sex with her, and then took her off to this kingdom, and like that's been the foundation of their entire relationship.
And that's what makes her feel safe.
Yes.
And being that is part of the reason. There's part of the things that I didn't like about the book.
It
goes to that.
Yeah, and you're so young here,
Yeah.
like at 15 and have never known peace in your life, and then so here this adult 22-year-old man comes in and he's like, I'm gonna show you peace and I'm gonna do this, and just that is just gross.
It's that savior complex.
It is.
Yeah. I fucking hate it. And being that you said, it goes right into what I didn't like. I have a lot of that, so I'm gonna kind of narrow it down. But I hate the fact that he made her so subservient to him, in a manner of speaking, that she relies on him for safety and comfort, and because of that, she dotes on him for approval to make sure that he still feels. But I also see that she's still a fighter. You can still see that she fucking tells him how she feels, and she gets upset, like right after the part where he puts her in harm's way with King Falk. She's mad and upset, and he comes to her and he tries to like, make her feel better, and so you could see that he uses what he used to say to her to get her, and so she ends up still seeking his approval. She makes excuses for him, and I fucking hate it. But it's part of the book. It's part of like her being in this world with him. But she also talked about the crack in the mirror in the window that is starting. And so I do like that, but it's the fact that it's just a crack right now bothers me. It should have been a crack a long time ago, and at this point it should be getting worse. But she said this is where the crack begins, and for some people it takes a little bit longer. So I don't want to say understand it, but okay, sure that it's gonna be harder for some people to start getting that crack, but I hate all of that about him, and then how he talks to her, even when he's not alone and he's in front of other people. He said one thing to her. He goes, "You are mine to do with as I wish, and if I wish to keep you in a caged quarters where only I can get to you, then that's my right. You are not here to have fucking thoughts." And I fucking hated that. Like with every being of my, like every fiber of my being, I fucking hated it. But he's trying to he's trying to say that in front of other people to put on a show, but then when he's with her,
that was his excuse.
Exactly. So he does that back and forth with her, and she makes excuses for him, and I absolutely hate it. And I was super grossed out with the whole thing with King Falk. I was just fucking disgusted. Yeah. He's a piece of shit dude. So yeah, and also besides the whole abusive shit, there's some things in this book that I just didn't quite get or understand. Like I don't like the names for some of the characters.
Yes.
I also found the ribbons very weird and odd.
They are really fucking weird.
I hate them. Like them at all.
Trying to envision these.
I have a hard time.
12 ribbons. What's like 24, right? Because there's 12 sets all the way down her spine, and then they're like wrapping around her, and then they're like out. Like
I didn't like them.
We could have found something different.
I didn't like that, and like being that I already read the series, I don't want to get into spoilers, but never mind, I'm not going to talk about that because like I don't want to give the spoilers. But
Yeah.
like I don't like it for this book. It was really weird. There were no real use to it. When she finally did have a use for it, it was very minimal. So I didn't understand the purpose. So I didn't quite get them yet.
Yeah, they could be gone.
Yeah. Also, I to go back off of the things that I didn't like naming. I didn't like the way the author named things. When I was reading this book for the first time and I read that snow pirates was a thing, I fucking laughed out loud. Like, I busted out laughing. I'm like, this is the dumbest fucking thing to name a group of people.
Yes.
Snow pirates?
Nothing elicits fear quite like snow pirates on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, they end up calling themselves the Red Raiders, and then throughout the series, I'm just going to give that spoiler, they end up calling themselves the Red Raiders the rest of the time. It's like, okay, that I get. Snow pirates?
The snow pirates.
Like, oh my god, that's so stupid. But like you said, nothing elicits fear more than the term snow pirates. I fucking laughed. I couldn't take it serious after that. Like, with that group of people. But they are disgusting pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you don't need to take them seriously.
yeah. And when Sal was killed, okay, this is gonna sound so bad because I really like Sal. I like Sal and Digby. But when Sal was killed, and they said, because I hate his name.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I hate his name. And I had a feeling that was going to come into play. So when it came into play and the snow pirate said, look guys, we have a sail, I couldn't help
Do you think he'll flap in the wind?
It's like, I hate this, but it's funny.
I kind of love that part.
I hate it, but it's funny. I was so sad, but I was like... I couldn't figure what my face wanted to do.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so like, I hated the names, and that was, I get what the author was trying to do with that, and it was just trying to like shock me into this fucking world of bullshit. And it was supposed to be a nameplate, but I was happy, sad, upset, laughing, crying. I don't know what to feel about that.
That's so funny.
But
I want to comment on what you were talking about with how Midas talks to her. There's one thing too that happens after the Falk incident when he's in the bath and he's trying to explain why he did to Falk what he did. That made me so mad because I don't believe for one fucking second that Falk was a skin trader and that he was trying to do this because he was just such a bad person and Midas just had to take care of it because I was thinking of you, Auren, and what you went through. I was like, you fucking disgusting piece of shit. That's when like you can see, because you can see it. You can see the tendrils of manipulation that are going through it, but it's right there that it's like smacked in your face. Like, this is what she's been told for a long fucking time. I mean, even the opening scene, which is a gross scene, is a great view of like the level of manipulation he's put her through, that now she's comfortable enough that she's been talked down enough that she's fine with watching him fuck other women. Like, essentially, that's how much control he's elicited over her to, like, and she even says it, like, well, he's a king, and so kings have tastes. I mean, what did I expect? Like, she even says that to herself, and it's just like...
And it's such a different take on it later in the series, that she feels this way about King Midas, but she doesn't feel this way about a certain somebody later in the series. And it's like... Because
that's how big of a hold he has over her, and then just to witness that moment of like, ew, like I could see it through her that you were doing it, but to have you do it directly into my face, it really pissed me off.
Right, that's what we was saying. It's one thing to like having to listen to her talk herself into how he's a good guy, and it's another to like, how do you think this is a good guy? He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, like, but then she's believing it. She's like, oh, he probably was a bad guy, and you did this for me, and it's like, girl, you're too deep into it. Somebody rescue her, please.
Yeah. She can't see for herself anymore.
No, she's too blinded. The gold has blinded her eyes.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's bad. So hated characters, obviously. Fuck King Midas.
Fuck King Midas, King Falk. The Queen I didn't like either.
I don't like her. I also hate Misty. Oh my god, I hate this bitch.
Oh yeah, Mist. Yeah.
I don't know, I fucking hate her. Every chance she gets to be a bitch, she is there to be a bitch. It's like...
I forget about her.
And she's bitching the whole time, like, we're only here at the carriage for her, and if everybody else died and they had to protect, it would be her. It's like, yeah, bitch, sorry, that's your station. Like, I know. She didn't ask for this. She's in a cage.
Go be somewhere else if you don't like your fucking duty. Like,
Would you be upset if, like, you had to lay your life down for the queen? No, because that's, like, you know your position. So, like, why are you upset that you're below the royal saddle, like, the gilded saddle? Like,
that's because she is the hierarchy of the saddles. Like, she is the one that he favors. She's a king favored. Like, I don't understand how... If you're jealous, just say you're jealous.
We fucking get it, girl. You're jealous, but, like, God, quit taking it out on her. And I feel bad for Auren a lot of times because she's trying to, like...
Yeah, she's trying to be cool with
a part of them.
and they just don't want to accept her
and
at all.
they're bitches. They are truly bitches.
Yeah.
And she's the worst of them.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my hated. Those two.
I would agree on all that. Yeah.
The queen is kind of a bitch here.
The queen is the one that she took. She had, what do you call it? Take her by the hair.
Yeah,
and
like abuse her. She was also upset.
Yeah.
But like, I don't feel like I get enough of her. Like that was it. You know what I mean? And this one.
Yeah.
Ask me if I hate her in the other one.
I hated her in this one because of that. I hated anybody who took Auren as a way to get their anger out. Like, yes. I immediately hated them. Because I'm like, she's such a nice person. She's not doing anything.
She's such a nice person.
Yeah.
And like, she didn't ask for any of this.
No.
So
I don't.
bad.
Yeah. And she was there before any of them. So FYI. If you guys
that's also why I don't know how much of Mist's history or how much Mist knows of their history, but like she was with him before he was king. So like.
Yeah.
Stand down, bitch.
Yeah.
Go away. Mm-hmm. She pisses me off. And she continues to piss me off through all of this series.
Yeah, I can't stand her either.
But I think... Oh, we get our loved. I love Auren. I also love Sale. I like Digby, but he's not like a favorite. Digby. I just like generally like him.
I like him because to me he's like that, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. And she's like, but I think it's more I like Auren with Digby.
Yes.
If Digby alone is... There's not a real reason to love him yet on his own, but I love their interaction, and therefore, exacto, like, I like him.
Yeah.
So, it's nice. It's nice, and plus, I like him because he's not that piece of shit dude. He is that father figure in my eyes in this book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
like I said, it gives me a lot of From Blood and Ash vibes.
Yes.
Victor and From Blood and Ash was the same.
I could see that.
A lot of that captivity book stuff is pretty much generally, you got your guard, that's really sweet, you got your love interest. So yeah, to me, he reminds me of that father figure that Auren really was looking for in Midas, but ended up getting a different figure from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, because in my opinion, he's the true protector.
Yes.
And
he does save her too, right, when she's gonna get killed. Yeah. So, that's all great. So, overall, I think it's a great book. It's a great series. So, hopefully you're along for the journey with us. Like we said, push through this one. If you hate it, just push through. Just try the second one out first and then decide. But, so, of course, we're continuing through this. So, the next one will be, I don't even know what it is.
Glint.
Glint.
I'm
just throwing them out there. I don't know. There's too many of them.
There is.
Glint, Gleam.
Yeah, they're too close together in title.
Yeah, I just throw a version of gold out there and hope it's the right one. Yeah, the second one.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in following along with us, for the next 5 weeks, these are the books that we'll be reading.
Yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, so you can follow along with us and see what we're up to.
Yep. We will see you next time.